Welcome to another edition of the College Basketball Net Profit Show. It is Monday, January the 16th. Ian Cameron and Conor Mack with you, ready to break down this Monday of college basketball. Partial card left still on the board. We have a few games that have more than a few, but a bunch have gotten underway, but there's still a bunch left for this Monday. Of course, day games all over the place due to the Martin Luther King Day holiday. So we will pick things up with games starting at 6 p.m. Eastern. We'll basically talk about every game on the main board from 6 p.m. Eastern till the end, and then we'll do Q&A and our thoughts on the games we don't talk about. Pretty much the added and extra board is what we'll do Q&A for at the end. All right, let's get to it. We will begin with UC Davis taking on UC San Diego. We've got UC Davis, 3.5 point road favorites here, 138.5 being the total in this game. UC Davis, a road chalk currently in this one. As far as this matchup goes, you have to start with the fact that we definitely know there's a bit of an advantage here for UC Davis in terms of better basketball team. No question. Laying 3.5 on the road for a pretty good reason. They're on a pretty good run of late, 3 straight wins in their last 3 games, all in conference play here in this Big West. And then UC San Diego on the flip side, 4 straight losses, 4 straight non-covers as well for this team. UC San Diego, oddly enough, actually, last year against these two, actually 3 meetings since UC San Diego became a member of Division I college basketball. There was only 1 meeting last year. I see January, but one of them was 2 years ago. But last year, UC Davis won 78-71 at home. The year before here at UCSD on their home floor, it was also a 7-point win in that game for UC Davis. To me, this is just a cheap price for a better team, a team that's surging straight up in ATS, a team that's reeling straight up in ATS. Pretty cheap price, reasonable to bet the superior team in this one, and a team that's obviously won and covered each of the last 2 meetings. So I am on the road favorite here. The UC Davis Aggies, 3.5 on the road. What do you think here, Conor?
Yeah, this that last game with Davis finally went over with a low total, but playing to the under more. I'm shocked a little bit this has moved up a couple points. Obviously, Davis can score, but UC San Diego it struggles to score. This team hasn't got past 68 the last 4, 56, 62. I lean under in this basketball game, and I'm not going to lay points with Davis. Just not going to do it. They might be the better basketball team, but I'm not going to do it at all. As they didn't cover on Saturday. So I don't want them. And I'd also look at, instead of just taking the full game under, look at the team total. It's, I think, 68.5 for UC San Diego. If that continues, I know Davis doesn't have a defense, but for them to hit 70, it just hasn't happened lately. So I'd look at that as well.
All right, we've got Illinois and Minnesota next up. Big Ten. Illinois 9-point road favorites, 136.5 the total. Look, I'm going to come right out and say it. Minnesota's turning a corner. They're not nearly as bad as they were early in the season. I've been able to ride them a couple of times now. I cashed a ticket with them against Nebraska, cashed a ticket with them against Wisconsin, and I cashed a ticket with them and I think we were on the show last week talking about that game at Ohio State, saying, 14.5 was too much to be given Minnesota. I like the Gophers here too. I know Illinois is the better of these 2 teams, but it's a bit of a sandwich spot for Illinois. Big home win against Michigan State, Friday night television game last week. You go back home after this game and you face Indiana, a team that's one of the, I would say, top 5 or so teams in the conference, a bigger game than this one. Now in the middle, stuck in the middle, you've got this road game against Minnesota. It definitely has that feeling of a spot where, Illinois could be caught in it a little bit in between 2 bigger games, 2 bigger opponents. And not to mention Minnesota's playing better right now. They picked it up on the defensive end of the basketball court. They're finally starting to get a little offensive flow and continuity going. So I think 9 points here as a home underdog, worth a look here on the Minnesota side. The one little area of concern I would have is the fact that the last 3 head-to-head meetings going back to December of 2020, Illinois has killed this team 3 straight times. That is one concern I've got. And Illinois is definitely playing better now after that little skid that they had. They've won 3 in a row against Wisconsin, Nebraska, and Michigan State. But nevertheless, I do think this is a dubious spot for the Illini, and I will take my chances. Minnesota can stay relatively competitive. What do you think here, Conor?
Yeah, they've owned them. They just got their ass whipped, like you mentioned, lately. But I'm going to dare it. Just say Illinois is playing a little bit better, like you mentioned, won the last few. Go in and win by 10 or more. at the barn. So I'm with you here. I'm with Minnesota. Give you the 9. There's some few 8.5s now, and I lean under Minnesota if they're in it and they don't get into a shootout. This game needs to stay in the 60s. So lean under on the total and give me the 9.
All right, there we go. I'll lean under the total and liking +9 here with Minnesota. All right, Delaware and Northeastern. Northeastern 2-point home favorites, 136.5 the total. I'll just right out say that I think Northeastern is the wrong team favorite here. I like the Blue Hens. Blue Hens have been good in the underdog role. And to be honest with you, Delaware has taken some lumps, in a couple of games recently, but I have no doubt in my mind they're still better than Northeastern. I was very surprised Northeastern was favored in this game. Because they're at home? I mean, I don't think it really matters. I think Delaware's just better. Delaware's coming off an ugly loss to Hofstra, but Hofstra is a solid team. Don't forget, this team was good enough to beat Towson, who's a very solid team in this Colonial Conference. And I think when you look at Delaware off a bad showing at Hofstra, you're going to see them get right back in the saddle here against Northeastern. Northeastern, 3.5-point home favorites. They got destroyed by Drexel, and Drexel's not even all that great, 76-55. 2-point favorites at William and Mary. Bill and his bitch, they lose 69-66. 9-point favorites at home against Stonehill. They lose outright 65-61. They've been brutal laying points. I mean, to me, this is definitely a Delaware side for me, and the money is trickling that way as we speak. What do you think here, Conor?
Both these teams are great defensively, but they're not great on offense either. But I'm with you here. I'm not going to mess with the total, even though I lean a little bit that way. I don't love it. I think the line's pretty sharp. You mentioned it. They just said Northeastern can't, beat anybody. Even at home, the loss to Drexel. I mean, they went and beat Hampton. Hampton's really bad. The loss the last couple, and it's been their shooting. They can't score. So no way. Even at 1.5 here, do I want to back them? And Delaware hasn't been great either. So I have not bet this one. It's just a lean for me with Delaware.
All right, we go move on to next game on the slate here on this Monday college basketball slate. We have I just lost my spot. We'll get it back. Here we go. North Carolina A&T and Hampton. North Carolina A&T 5-point road favorites, 147.5 being the total in this game. If you're wondering, and it's still maybe some people are getting used to this, why the hell are A&T and Hampton on the main board? Because they're both in the Colonial Athletic Association now. They're on a main board conference now. They used to be on an added board conference before. Now they're both on a main board. They're both making the trip, the ascension, if you will, into the Colonial this year. North Carolina A&T has handled it better than Hampton. NC A&T, they've won 3 of their last 5. Won and covered at Elon, beat Stonehill in their last game. You look at Hofstra as 12-point dogs. They won that game outright. They've had some ugly games too, like Charleston couldn't hang in that. And Wilmington, they lose 66-61, but fairly competitive in that game. I just don't know if Hampton's going to even be close in this game. They have not even been competitive for 6 of their last 7 games. I mean, a 12-point loss at Norfolk State, 17-point loss at Wilmington, 16-point loss to Hofstra, 16-point loss to Northeastern, who aren't even that good. We just talked about Northeastern. This Hampton team lost by 16, and William and Mary by 18 in their last game. They're on a 0-5 ATS slide. I agree with the move to A&T. It's up to 5 now. You want to lay 5, 5.5. It's up to you. But even at 5, 5.5, I'm still taking A&T. There's no way I'm endorsing Hampton. No way, no how at this point in time. I got in at 4.5. 5.5, I'd still say play it. I think lay it with A&T. What do you think, Conor?
Yeah, I can't back Hampton. You want to just all of a sudden think they're going to get it done today? I mean, good luck with that money. I agree with you.
Track record of sucking, and that's what Hampton's had.
I agree with you. I'm not like going crazy and running to the window to bet North Carolina with a team like this, but I think it's them or just stay off this game.
Indeed. Totally agree. All right. Florida Atlantic, Western Kentucky. We've got FAU 4.5-point road favorites, 141 being the total in this game. This is an interesting matchup. It's 2 of the, I would say better upper half teams in the Conference USA for sure. Florida Atlantic's had a very nice season, 16 and more than very nice. They've been excellent. They've even beaten the best teams in this conference. I mean, they've beaten North Texas twice on the road and again at home over the weekend. They won it against UAB 88-86. Their offense is really playing well right now. They've trended over the total during this stretch. Western Kentucky, though, we knew there's always talent with this team. I don't know if they're as nearly as good as they've been in the past, and they certainly had their share of issues in the month of December. They really struggled. But look, they got some guys back from injury. They were banged up a little bit, and they're playing their best basketball right now, Western Kentucky. They've turned a corner. They handled UTSA, sorry, Jose, 74-64. They won outright as 11-point dogs at UAB, 80-78, which was a very impressive win. Blazers are an excellent team in this conference. And then in their last game against FIU, they didn't suffer a letdown after the big road win. 70-59, double-digit victory over Florida International. So I like the way Western is trending. And if there's ever a spot to bet against Florida Atlantic, this is it. They're coming off another massive win in the conference against North Texas. Now they go on the road. I think it's a Hilltopper spot. I actually like the 4.5, the 5 here with Western Kentucky in this game. And I think the total is light. You've got two teams that are trending upward offensively. I think it'll go up and over the 141 as well. Conor, what do you think here? FAU, WKU.
Yeah, FAU, I think, looking right now, the best team here in the conference. This just is the shitty spot, like you mentioned. I really wanted the 6-7 range, but I still think 4.5 here, Western Kentucky can get done. You mentioned they've been getting healthier. As long, especially if Acot's in, he's a solid guard that kind of has been hurt, banged up, and not playing as well. So hopefully he's in and looks okay. I think they can hang around in this one. So, I lean the points too.
All right, lean into the points as well as Conor in this one. All right, we move along here on this Monday slate. North Texas, Florida International, staying in Conference USA. North Texas, 9-point road favorites, 124.5 being the total in this game. Now, North Texas, you could say, could be in a letdown spot, could be in a focus spot too, because they lost to FAU in that big conference showdown over the weekend. Now they go on the road again, though, for this one here as they take on Florida International. It's kind of lean to the underdog here for me in this game as well. FIU, I should say, is a solid 8-3 straight up on their home floor this year, and a winning point spread record as well. On their home floor, they played Florida Atlantic and lost by 4. They took UAB to overtime, 90-87 on this floor. So right there, the two of the best teams in Conference USA at home. Florida International lost by 3 in OT and lost by 4 in OT. Why can't they compete here as well? Against North Texas. North Texas is very good defensively, but they can scuffle at the offensive end. They don't push pace. They're very slow. That's why the total is low. It's definitely a clash of pace here because FIU wants to push it. North Texas wants a snail pace. But I think it's too many points here. I think FIU can hang, and they've certainly shown that their last 2 home games against some of the best teams in the conference, UAB and FAU, right there, took them both to overtime. What do you think here, Conor? North Texas, FIU.
Yeah, this is just the clash, like you mentioned. North Texas still one of the top defenses. FIU, not very good defense in the 300s, but they've turned it around and really at home. And I got burned. I forget the game like 2 weeks ago. The favorite I took with them, FIU, I believe, won outright. So I was hoping for double digits. I think earlier, a few weeks ago, they lost by 13 or maybe 15 at North Texas. I think they could hang here. I don't think I bet this in the end. So I'm going to stay off. And you know what? North Texas gone a little bit over. I still think they can get in just a slow game, and it could stay under the total. So with teams I'm not loving or having too much success, I'm going to be off.
All right, nothing wrong with that. We move along now to it looks like we've got ACC here. Syracuse, Miami. Miami Hurricanes, 7-point home favorites, 150 the total. Look, if you're going to take Syracuse, this is where you want to take them, getting points. You don't want to lay points with Syracuse, that's for sure. This would be the time. But you want to fade Miami is the question. They are undefeated on their home floor, probably are the better of these two teams. They are coming off a loss, though, a tough one in overtime at NC State on the road on Saturday. Wild finish to that game, and they end up losing by 2 in overtime, 83-81. You look at the last 2 on the road, Louisville and Virginia in particular. Syracuse was competitive in defeat, losing by 7. So, I think Miami can win this game. I don't want to lay 7, though. Syracuse has been a little bit competitive here away from home at times this year. What I am zoning in on here is the total. I mean, I think it flies over. Syracuse has been an over machine overall. They've been an over cash cow for me personally. I think I've been on mostly every recent Syracuse game over the total. Why stop now? Miami doesn't mind running. If you run, if you don't play defense, they'll push the ball down your throat. They won't hesitate to do that. So I think at 150 over the total is where I'm going in this game. Conor, Syracuse, Miami.
Yeah, Miami with the good guard play and Wong. I just don't want to lay 7 with them. And for the total, real quick on that, I don't blame you. To me, it's over or pass. I think it might be a little bit too high. And it depends here on Syracuse, kind of their defense, in this one, the zone. And if they hit their shots, they'll cover this game. And they've been tight. I remember these games the last couple of years. I mean, there've been some real close ones. Syracuse overtime games, a couple buckets. So I think Miami the better team at home, but I don't want to lay 7 with them. I'd lean with the Cuse.
I hope I can maintain the way this day has started for me in college basketball, because I'm looking at the results. It's been a hell of a day for me. So, like, I had Towson, they crushed Hofstra. I had Georgetown. You know how bad Villanova's playing that I'm taking Georgetown. That's how bad Villanova is. I took the 14 with Georgetown, and they were just in that game from start to finish. I had the over with Cornell again. Remember, I mentioned that on Friday's show, Cornell and Yale. That game flew over the total. We were on the air, and that game was just soaring over the total. I was on a Cornell over again today. The only loss I've had so far today, CMAC, was St. Joe's and LaSalle over. That one fell short, 71 to 59. But right, and the games that are going right now, I've got G-Dub. They're up by 7 as an 8-point dog. I've got UTEP. We're mining for units again with the Miners. They're up by 2 on Charlotte. I'm on Brown plus the points and Brown Yale over, and I'm on Charleston over the total with William and Mary. So I have a chance to have a nice little afternoon. I hope I don't shit the bed for everybody on the show here for tonight.
Me either. I mean, I'm 2-0. I have some G-Dub. That total was confusing me with Brown Yale because I think you get over. But Yale's been such to the under. But I just took Brown with you. I took the 8.5.
Nice.
I know they struggle to score, but I thought they could hang around. We'll see.
What can Brown do for you? Hopefully cash a ticket. Hopefully cover the point spread. Hopefully that's
they've been better of late.
Yeah. They have been. Yep, definitely. And it's just Yale laying the number like that, always a little shit. And plus coming off the big Cornell game over the weekend too, a little bit of a tricky spot. All right, so that's in action now. Let's go back to focusing on what's to come tonight. And we've got Cleveland State and Purdue Fort Wayne next up here. Purdue Fort Wayne, 5.5-point home favorites, 137.5 being the total in this game. Look, these are two teams that have been kind of up and down. There's no question. Purdue Fort Wayne's pretty solid 7-2 straight up at home. Only 2-5 against the spread, though, so be careful. And Cleveland State only 4-5 straight up on the road, but they have a winning point spread record on the road going into this game. To be quite honest with you, I think this is probably a dog or pass kind of look for me. I don't always trust Fort Wayne here in the favorites role. In fact, they're 0-3 ATS their last 3 games, all laying points. So they have not been good in this role of late. You look at head-to-head last year, Cleveland State won the first meeting, and the second meeting here in Purdue Fort Wayne, it was 102-98. That game soared over the total. I think the over's in play here too. Look, I get it. Cleveland State, or I should say Purdue Fort Wayne, on the defensive end was pretty solid in their last game, but they're a little mediocre defensively, and scoring they've had no issues. They've consistently been in the 70s. Don't look now, Cleveland State, after some struggles to put the ball in the basket, the last 2 games, Green Bay and IUPUI, they exploded into the 80s, and they both went over the total. So I'm looking at the dog. I'm looking at over 138 here, side and total here in this game. What do you think?
When these teams get together, it's just like a dead crazy under in the 50s, or this game's gonna just fly over. It seems like it's just been wild when they meet up. It's like shots drop so easy, or they're just brick city. One thing Purdue Fort Wayne, they've been playing better basketball and winning, but any team that's been competitive around them, you mentioned they can't cover the number. So for me, it'd be Cleveland State with this 5.5 or nothing, 5.5, 6.
All right, good stuff. Next up here, we continue along. We've got Princeton and Penn, Ivy League action here. Penn, we've got 1.5-point home favorites, 144.5, 145 being the total in this game. Great matchup here. Princeton playing well, 12-5 on overall, 5-2 straight up, 5-2 against the spread on the road. They're coming off. We talked about how Brown is starting to improve a little bit. It was Brown that beat Princeton on Saturday, 72-70. So Princeton's in a bounce back spot. That being said, so is Penn after a 75-71 loss to Dartmouth in their last game. I kind of lean to the home team here. I think Penn is the side I'd consider in this game. Princeton has actually covered 6 straight. I think Penn, though, has some good basketball ahead of them. Let's keep in mind, A couple of their key starters were injured early in the year. That lent itself to some of the struggles this team had, including, of course, Jordan Dingle. His name always seems to come up when we talk about Penn, but he is their best player. He's their most important. I think in this spot, you've got two teams that I think are going to play hard in this game because they're both off losses. They're both going to want to bounce back, but definitely home court. And another thing, too, with this spot here for Princeton is look at the scheduling here. Road game. Then they had a road game as well Saturday. So 3 on the road in a row in the Ivy League for Princeton. And now they are on the road again, second game in 3 days here at Penn. And whereas Penn is finally back home after a rough road stretch. So I think it's a situational edge for the Quakers here. So I like Penn money line. What do you think, Con?
I'm going to stay off this game. This total off the loss, we know Penn's been more of an over team. I think it's pretty sharp. It hasn't moved, though, this line. I'd still lean over. This is one I've just gone back and forth with. I think in the end, they both could shoot it well. So, yeah, this is a wait for me in the end, but I'll lean over.
All right, one of my favorite teams right now, honestly, Elon, and I don't mean that facetiously. I mean that, seriously. Elon against Wilmington. Elon right now, or Wilmington rather, 14.5-point home favorites, 135 is the total in this game. Why do I say one of my favorites? Because this team's going to start, and they already have to some extent started to make money for their backers. Look, they've had a beyond bad season, the Elon Phoenix. I mean, they're 2-16 straight up, but this is the time you start to try to make a case to bet some of these teams, that are so bad. And now the point spread has just dropped like a stone on these teams. And now is the value is there in droves to actually back them. And I think that's Elon right now. Look, I took 21 with them against Charleston. They lost by 18. They got inside the number. Against A&T, they lost by 11. Wilmington lost by 15. Delaware on the road, lost by 5, especially on the road as underdogs. Charleston, they covered. At Delaware, they lost by 5 as 12.5-point dogs. At Drexel, they lost by 12 and pushed because they were 12-point dogs. At Valpo, they were 8.5-point dogs. They lost by 5. This is what I like about teams like this. Yeah, they're bad. Yeah, they can't win, but we don't need them to win. We just need them to hang. We just need them to hang around inside an inflated point spread. And I think that's what this is. I like Elon here, plus the big number. Lose by 8, lose by 6, lose by 10. That's something they've been doing routinely here on the road. And let's be honest, Wilmington's cooled off. They were red hot, and they've lost 2 in a row against Charleston and William and Mary. The last one was a bad loss. William and Mary, they were 12-point favorites. They lost that game outright. Wilmington in their last game. So I like Elon here. It's just too many points, and these are the kind of teams I like making money with, these lower, smaller conference teams, and all of a sudden they start covering numbers as these big, ugly dogs after a wretched start, and that's Elon right now. What do you think here, Conor?
Yeah, Wilmington, one of my favorite teams the last few years betting on it, but just too big a number here. I don't want to lay 15. They just beat them by 15. At Elon, I'd be on Elon or nothing, especially Elon, get to the line. They're so bad shooting it. If they could get some threes, a team that shoots 28, 29%, man, if some of these can go down, Wilmington's sleepwalking. I lean with Elon. Shout out to our guy T. Someone said he's on first half. I don't mind that if they can come out and hit some of those.
Yeah, and I like that, the same season revenge angle, too, because you're right. They got drubbed by Wilmington at Elon on their home floor. Now they get to go on the road and hang, and I think they will hang. You know what? That's a good long-term angle in college basketball and conference play, Conor. Watch out for this. A team that in the first meeting loses at home, and then they're a road dog in the rematch. The road dog's a really good bet. That's long-term profitable angle. ATS is the road dog. Same season revenge after losing at home to that same team earlier in the season. And that's what we have here with Elon. Keep an eye on that, especially in the smaller conferences. It's a really, really good thing to consider.
Love it.
Yep, definitely. And that, like I said, I think for Elon, that's definitely worth a look here in this one. Rice and UTSA. We've got Rice 6.5-point road favorites, 152.5 the total in this game. Boy, oh boy. Let me just put it nicely. UTSA basketball, it ain't UTSA football. That is putting it mildly. It's not the same quality that we're seeing. They're obviously struggling. Their only win in conference play was Middle Tennessee at home. They were 10-point home dogs, though, in that game, and they won 75-72. So they sprung up and took care of business against the Blue Raiders, shot the ball well, actually were somewhat decent defensively, which hasn't always been the case for UTSA, but they weren't able to sustain that. They lose to Western Kentucky, lose to UTEP by double digits. They get whipped by Charlotte over the weekend, 72-54. So tough sledding right here for UTSA going into this game against Rice. Last year, these two teams met. They were massive shootouts back and forth over the total. You had one game that got into the 160s, I believe it was. No, actually 179 was the first meeting, and then 153 was the second meeting. So the second meeting was a little bit lower scoring, but it still went over the total. And 153 would cash your over here. Barely, but it would. So that's what I'm looking at here is points, points, points. We should see them. Rice has gone over the total 9 of their last 10 games. I know 3 unders for UTSA, but Charlotte slows it down. UTEP slows it down. Western Kentucky's not a bad defensive team, and they don't necessarily play fast. This is different. Rice isn't very good defensively. They'll play fast. So will UTSA. This one goes over the total, I think. What do you think, Conor?
Yeah, I mean, I think it does. They're dealing with a bunch of injuries. Some of their scorers here. I think that's why they have these against teams that are good defense, like Charlotte, like you mentioned, and UTEP. So if the shots are rolling with them, because Rice would want to be up and down and probably get in the 80s. I worry they don't score here.
Jake Germany's the big one for
yes, he's their bet. Yeah, the one that's the most points. So a little bit high of a total. That'd be my lean. I think I'm going to stay off in the end here.
All right, there we go. So pass for Conor on this one. All right, we move along now to Cal Poly and Riverside. We've got some Big West matchups here. Riverside, 7.5-point home favorites, 128 the total in this one. This is another one of those conferences where I try to make a case for the underdog before the favorite. I don't know if I can do that with Poly, though. Poly is having a tough time. 0-4 straight up. 2-4 ATS their last 4 games. They've kind of struggled. See if they can hang tough here in this one, but the road dog roll has not been good for them. They lost it by 9 at Hawaii, by 10 at CS Bakersfield, and then a 19-point loss at Long Beach in their last game, which was last week. So problems for Cal Poly on the highway, and Riverside's really rolling along pretty nicely. You could question, though, with them here as 7.5-point favorites, will they cover this kind of number? Let's keep in mind that last time they were favorites, they crushed Northridge, but before that against Fullerton, they were favored by 3. They lost outright, but for the most part, there's been a good home court for Riverside. Beat Portland by 11, crushed CS Bakersfield by 12. So, it's just I haven't seen good enough from Cal Poly to trust them, and I don't want to lay the favorites. So it's a pass for me. Conor, what do you think?
Yeah, I lean Riverside, off some pretty big wins for them. I just have to go back because Cal Poly can't score. Is lean under here. Yeah. I haven't took it yet, but that'd be or even Cal Poly's team total. I have to look that up, but that's where I'd be.
Yeah, the Cal Poly's offense is dreadful. 355 in points per game, 300s in field goal percentage numbers. So the under definitely makes sense here, and the total's been bet down as well.
It's 60, right. So you're not getting a bargain, but
no,
they might not get there.
No, you're definitely not getting a bargain. UC Santa Barbara. You know that old soap opera, NBC Santa Barbara? Dun, 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 dun. Every time I talk about Santa Barbara, I think of that theme song. We've got Irvine, 2-point home favorites, 134.5 the total. This one feels like an under, too. I mean, when you just look at this matchup on paper stylistically, throw out the personnel. Who's going to push pace here? I'm not sure either will. Santa Barbara has always been one of those more of a half-court type of team for all these years, and they're a pretty solid defensive team as well. So I don't know if you're going to get a boatload of offense from them, although they are still better at that end than their opponent here. You look at Irvine, 12-5, 5-2 at home, yet I'm a little surprised that Santa Barbara is the dog because, look, I know Irvine's won 5 in a row, but, man, Santa Barbara's been excellent. I know they had a hiccup last time out against Riverside, but really it's the only bad game they've played in almost 2 months. And I like quality teams in a bounce-back type of situation after a loss like that. It's a wake-up call. Riverside, you're 10.5-point favorites, and you lose that game 65-64. It's a wake-up call, in my opinion, for Santa Barbara. And I still think they're the better squad than Irvine. So I took +2, 2.5 with Santa Barbara, UCSB. I like that side. I would lean under as well. Connor, any thoughts?
Yeah, I am on the under here. There's still, I think, some 134.5. Santa Barbara needs to be in it. They have to. It's their defense. Other side, the Anteaters a little bit more to the over, a little bit higher scoring for them. But in a game like this is rivalry. These two, every year it just seems like back and forth. So I am on the under. I'm going to stay off the side in this one.
Next up, as we continue along here, we've got it is UAB, Middle Tennessee State. We go back to Conference USA. UAB 2-point road favorites, 143.5 the total in this one. Okay, now it's one thing for these people to do this once, even twice, but this is now happening every game here with UAB. Who the fuck keeps betting their games under like this? Seriously, who keeps betting UAB games under? Like, I want to know. I need to know what's going on here. Like, what are they
Walker's out?
Yeah,
I don't get it. It's, to me now, it's come down too much.
Yeah,
that's what I was going to bring up. Keep rolling. I just think it's come down now too far. I
It
get the initial.
too far. They scored 84 and they won without Jelly Walker against Louisiana Tech. And I still like the over in that game on Saturday. They don't mind. They got scoring for days, that team. Scoring's not their issue. Defense is their issue. They can score without Jelly Walker. Jelly Walker's a great player, but come on, he's getting too much hype. Okay, he's getting a little too much hype. They can still win and they can still score the basketball without him. They showed that against Louisiana Tech. I get it, he's questionable again, but the game flew over the total with La Tech and he was out. 155 points in that game. Why can't this game do? And you're getting a bargain. You're getting 143 in a UAB game. That is an absolute. Their total shouldn't be that low, even without Jelly Walker. They're an over machine. They're 8-1 to the over their last 9. Now, do I love them in this spot? They showed they could go on the road and still win. We know they're a better team than Middle Tennessee still. Middle Tennessee's lost 2 of their last 3. In terms of their play against the better teams in this conference, they did beat Western Kentucky at home, okay, but Western Kentucky was still struggling a bit. They had a bad loss to UTSA. They lost to North Texas. There's doubts about whether Middle Tennessee can beat UAB even without Jelly Walker, in my opinion. Now, they have trended under the last few games, but keep in mind, UTSA, team that'll push pace, that game got to 147 in total points, and it went over the total as well. You look at actually most of their schedule, Belmont, game goes over the total. Belmont gets up and down the floor. Well, so will UAB. So, again, I understand that they see Jelly Walker, questionable. Bet the under. Well, this move is way too much. Okay, could you make a case 149.5 where it opened? Bet the under. Yeah, and even then I probably would have leaned over at 149.5. Now at 143.5, you bet your booty I'm going to be betting the over here. In this game, UAB and MTSU. So great value, 6-point drop, not warranted, in my opinion. What do you think here, Conor? UAB, MTSU?
Middle Tennessee, obviously a little bit slower, but they score 70 a game. And the team, Western, a good defensive team, 65-60. And then the low scoring, obviously, North Texas. I know Rice just stayed under. I mean, they've gone over, though. I think they're 9-6 to the over, or 8-6. So I thought it went down too much too. I mean, initially I'm like, I get it, Walker's out, but now that it's down here, I was wondering if we get 142. Even I'm on the other way. I still think UAB with him out still don't play defense. I still think Middle Tennessee can score in the mid 70s, right around there, maybe even 80, and this gets over. And I kind of lean Middle Tennessee a little bit, little home dog, short dog here. So that's where I'm looking. I'm going to wait on it. On the total and same thing, lean Middle Tennessee.
Yeah, definitely. And by the way, from a situational standpoint, it's 2 road games in 3 days for UAB. So, and I know they overcame the absence of Jelly on Saturday against Louisiana Tech, but it's a tough spot if you're without him again. So I understand maybe Middle Tennessee being live potentially here as home does, but I love that over. I mean, to me, it's just gone down way too low now. And look at UAB at home. They scored 78 against Middle Tennessee at home. They scored 65 against Western, 72 against UTSA. They scored 71 in their last game, 73 against Chattanooga at home. That game went over the total. They'll play with some pace. So, yeah, I think at 143.5, this one will go over the total. It's just the total bet down too much there in my mind. All right, next up, we've got Montana, Eastern Washington. Big Sky. in this one. Eastern Washington, 4.5-point home favorites, 146 down to 142.5, the total in this game. Now, this is definitely going to be a fascinating one because you've got, obviously, on the Montana side of things, you've got a Grizzlies team that is going to probably try to slow the game down a bit. Eastern Washington's going to want to run and gun. That's what you're always going to get with that team. The question is, who's going to get their preferred level of pace? Eastern Washington is undefeated 6-0 at home. They've gone over the total in 3 straight games. They've scored 78. I mean, they've been lighting up the scoreboard. There's no question about that during that span. Montana, on the flip side, I mean, you look at their games against faster-paced teams, Northern Colorado. Yeah, and Idaho State in their last game went over the total, and they scored 84 in that game. It's not like they're a terrible offensive team. Someone in the chat earlier today said, why is this total going down? I'm in that same boat, just like the UAB game. I'm wondering why it's going down this much too, to be quite honest with you. I mean, especially with what we've seen from Eastern Washington in terms of their games lately. I mean, we're talking now down to 142 in this game. That being said, Eastern Washington still is very lax defensively. That concerns me.
Yeah.
You look at the meetings against Montana. Montana hasn't been outclassed by Eastern Washington. Montana has won 2 of the last 3 head-to-head meetings. I'd take the points. I don't like laying points with a bad defense, and Eastern Washington's got that. I know Montana's been a little bit up and down, but I think on the road they've been ultra competitive. You look at what they've done away from home in Big Sky play. They had the 1-point loss to Northern Arizona, but they beat Northern Colorado by 5. No evidence that they are blown out here necessarily on the road. So Montana plus the points would be the look for me from a side standpoint. But definitely I think the total is going in the wrong direction, and I like that over with these two. Conor, what do you think?
Yeah, it could be good. I just like Montana a little bit better at home, and Eastern Washington's defense. I just not always love laying points, but I've leaned their side a little bit. They've been back to the over team that they weren't early on, where they struggled in non-conference play. There's just been a ton. And Montana State game, 70-67. That's where I think that's the only way this stays under. Both these teams shoot free throws well. They both shoot about 36% from 3. I know Montana the last couple of games have gone under, but to me, this is just over nothing. I don't know if I go crazy on this game, but I think I'll have a small bet on the over here.
All right, now we go from Montana, as in the Grizzlies, to Montana State, as in the Bobcats, taking on Idaho, the Vandals. We've got Montana State, 9-point road favorites, 140.5 the total. Yeah, and I don't do this very often, and obviously if I'm going to lay points with the road favorite, it's got to be for a good reason. I think this is for a good reason. Montana State's peaking. Montana State's playing their best basketball right now. This is a team that, I think right now, when you look at their recent results, they are playing their best. They've won 4 straight, covered 4 straight, and all in blowout fashion. By 21 at Northern Colorado is short favorites. By 15 at Northern Arizona. By 13 against Idaho State. And then by 15 against Weber State. Man, I was so impressed with Montana State in their last game. This is a really solid Big Sky basketball team. Very efficient offensively. No question about that. 32nd in the country in field goal percentage, and they just happen to be facing a hideous Idaho defense that's just terrible. And they can't shut down the perimeter. Montana State's a good perimeter shooting team, and just overall, they're very efficient offensively, and there's a bottom-tier defensive team. So Montana State should have their way with Idaho and that Vandals defense. Danny Sprinkle, how can I bet against a guy who's a team that's coached by a guy with a name like that? Danny Sprinkle. Sprinkle on Montana State, I say tonight, minus the 9. I think they whip them, honestly. I mean, Idaho has just plays no defense. Montana State's been able to win every game by double digits, each of their last 4 double-digit margins. That's all they need here, and you'll win your bet. I like Montana State. Conor, what do you think?
I'm off here, even though Montana State's playing great basketball. A big win on Saturday. For me, Idaho always a little bit better at home. I really wanted doubles to maybe look at them, 11 or 12. I don't know if 8.5 is enough, but I think they might come to play. So it's just they haven't looked good lately. Portland State, better team this year. Portland State in the past couple of years kind of took it to them. So in the end, I'm going to be off. But I'd lean the points if I had more.
Great point by Nasty Nate. 101 live viewers. And I know it's a holiday. Everybody's relaxing, but hit the like button. Holiday or not, you don't need to relax to hit the like button. So we appreciate it. Shout out to Nasty Nate, everybody in the chat, Rara Murray, Daryl Turner, Cash Action, Bets, Coin, everybody in the chat. We appreciate it very much. Got a couple games left on the main board, and then we'll do a brief Q&A and opinions on the added board games after that. We've got CS Northridge and Hawaii out on the island. We've got Hawaii 16-point home favorites, 124 the total in this one. Once again, we've got a Big West matchup here in this game. You know, I keep thinking at some point value is going to show up on Northridge. They've had a terrible season. They're a 3-14 team. Here's another team. This is one of those teams, Northridge, where, quite honestly, their defense isn't that bad. It's that they're just so brutal offensively. It's really what's done them in a lot of games. They are 0-6 in their last 6 games against the spread, 0-6 straight up as well. Losses by 14, by 8, by 23, by 10, by 12, by 10. And now you got to trust them here on the island, making this long trip out there. Hawaii played this team twice last year. Hawaii only won by 7 at home, but beat down Northridge by 18, or by 22 rather, in the rematch. 9 straight overs head-to-head with Northridge and Hawaii. That's what I'm zoning in on here. And we've had success with, look, I get it. Northridge is not a good offensive team. They're a decent defensive team. And flip it around, you've got Hawaii, a very good defensive team. They're only average offensively. So in theory, this should be an under. This should be low scoring, and that's why the total is 124.5. But 9 straight overs head-to-head, CS Northridge versus Hawaii at a 124.5 total. For that reason, I'm taking my chances here with the over in this one, 124.5. I mean, it's hard to ignore that recent pattern when these two teams go head-to-head. What are you thinking here, Conor? Matadors and Warriors.
Yeah, I don't want this game. Hawaii wins. I just don't want to lay this big a number because this seems like the 23-point win or a 13, 14-point win. They just can't score. Northridge unders have been money for me, but this is a bit low. Hawaii as well. The first half I got to look up. It's got to be really low. Even that last game against Long Beach, that second half just exploded. It was 49-40. Like the last 7 minutes of that basketball game was just every shot went in. It was crazy. I'm going to be off this one. Maybe it's too low. You're right. You better hope Northridge hits some shots. This basketball team, their team total is 53. I mean, if they get to 60 over that, I think it's a success. I know the past have been overs. Man, this team's horrible. 57, 54, 45. They've had a couple games, I guess. Long Beach, more of a higher scoring team. But, man, I'll be off.
All right, I got an ugly dog in the final game on the main board here, Bakersfield and Fullerton. We've got CS Bakersfield, CS Fullerton. Fullerton, 9.5-point home favorites, 118.5. Of course, CS Cal State, of course. I'm going to take a shot with Bakersfield. Look, Bakersfield's not playing well, but you're talking about plus 9.5 in a game with a total of 118.5. In a game where the tempo for both sides is 312 and 359 in the country. In a game where both teams defensively are 140 and 162. They're both even defensively. Fullerton's definitely a better offensive team. Bakersfield really wretched offensively, but you're talking about getting a 9.5-point underdog and spread here with a dog that's not going to push pace, that's at least somewhat decent defensively. And look, last year, when they made the trip to Bakersfield in this game, it was a 6-point game, between these two teams. So again, this is just 9.5 points in a snail pace, low possession game. That's something that's worth taking, I think. What do you think here, Colin?
That defense. That's why. Give me the points here with it. I think it's too many. Fullerton been great against the number as of late, but they're stretching it out here. They're not that great offensively. I mean, it's just the conference they play in. So total's low. I'm not going to mess with that at all, but I think the points are valuable here with Bakersfield with their defense.
All right, there we go. That's the main board. We'll do a couple minutes of Q&A and any games from the added extra board that we like that we haven't talked about. In terms of the added board, extra board, that's all we've got left. There's only about 7 games still remaining on the added board, Conor. Is there anything there you like that you've bet?
No.
There we go. I like it. Nice and simple, nice and short. We can move on then, unless there's Q&A. To be honest with you, I don't have anything on the added. No, I do. I do have one, and that's a miracle for me. That in a swatch of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games, that I only have one bet. But it is. I only have one bet pending still on the added board, and that's Lehigh and Loyola Maryland over 136. That's it. It's the only game I've bet on the added board for tonight. Is that one. Lehigh, Loyola, Maryland over 136. I think that one has a chance to get over the total. All right, that's it. So Q&A, again, there's not much. I leaned to that Fairleigh Stonehill over, Keith. I didn't pull the trigger because they're not scoring like they did Stonehill. And Stonehill's, I think, one of those teams that, they had that little hot start and they've kind of fallen back and crashed down to earth a little bit as of late. And their overs haven't been nearly as automatic in recent games. I mean, they're on actually a 5-game under streak. They can't score all of a sudden, Stonehill. So, yeah, they were playing with pace. They were catching teams by surprise early on, not so much anymore. So, Fairleigh Dickinson's still not a bad over team. But, yeah, I passed on that one, Keith, but I wish you all the best with it. So there you go. I really have not much on the other games, not even any leans. So if you got a Q&A on one or two, throw them at us. Other than that, we'll get to best bets.
Yeah, there was nothing. I thought it was a slim pickings here on the extra board today.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Kind of like the under in Wagner Merrimack, but the problem is it's 116.5. I mean, that's just, come on, that's very low.
Yeah.
You need a clean ride to get that game to stay under the total. So I'm off that there. I'd lean Wagner actually plus 2.5 a little bit. But again, I didn't bet anything on the added board other than Lehigh, Loyola, Maryland over the total in that one. I gave a little lean to LIU, Brooklyn, Long Island too as well, but I stayed off that, the plus 3.5 against St. Francis, New York. All right, there we go. That's it. We'll go to best bets in just a second. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. Hit the like button. Best bets coming up right after we hear from Manscaped and Southtown 101. All right, Southtown 101. When you're in San Antonio, Texas, stop in. Great food, drinks, live music, DJs, karaoke. Southtown 101, manscaped.com, promo code PubSports, 20% off and free shipping with promo code PubSports. All right, best bets to wrap it up for this Monday edition. Conor, what do you like for best bet?
Yeah, let's go to this. The under, UCSB and Irvine under 134.5. I think it's good money. That's it. You on mute?
UCSB, Cal Irvine, under 134.5. There it is, best bet for Conor Mack. And my best bet, look, it's been a nice run. Clemson got there. It was a slow start for Clemson, but they roared back to beat Duke in the second half. The nice run going with these best bets. See if we can keep it going here. Tough decision here. I mean, there's a couple totals I'm going back and forth with. Let's give you the total with Florida Atlantic and Western Kentucky. Let's go with that one. FAU and Western Kentucky. We're going to go over 141. I like the Western Kentucky side as well. I think that's a good way to go in that game as well, but I like the total just a bit more, and it's worthy of best bet status. I think it's a pretty low number for what we've seen offensively from these two teams of late. FAU and Western Kentucky over 141 for my best bet for this Monday card. I almost went with Syracuse, Miami over, which I like quite a bit as well, but I decided to go with that one. All right, good stuff. Great show. Hit the like button on the way out. We appreciate it, and we'll be back tomorrow. A little bit bigger slate. More power conference games on deck on this Tuesday tomorrow. So join us again, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific tomorrow for another edition of the College Basketball Net Profit Show. I will be back for the live bet stream of the final Super Wildcard Weekend game tonight, Cowboys and Buccaneers. Let's see how it goes.
Who you got?
Tampa. Yeah, I got Tampa.
I think that's I'm not backing the Cowboys.
No, I'm trusting in old man Winter, Tom Brady, one more time here.
Tom Ace.
Not going to be his last ride tonight, I don't think, in this one. And Tampa over the total, hoping we complete a perfect weekend of overs in the wild card weekend, because I am on the over as well with that Dallas and Tampa game. All right, so join us, 8 p.m. Eastern, live bet stream. I know it'll be me, Jimmy the Bag, Conor, no, not Conor, Mac, Big Ragu for sure, going to be on the stream tonight.
If I'm home, I'll jump on. Yeah, if I'm here, I will.
Yeah, and Big Ragu will be on the Bucks for sure. No question about that. So it'll be a lot of fun. Dallas-Tampa live stream tonight for the final wildcard weekend game right here on Pub Sports Radio. For Conor Mack, I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great Monday night. Enjoy the games and good luck. And we will talk to you again tomorrow for another edition of the College Basketball Net Profit Show right here on Pub Sports Radio.